Hello, my name is Andy Weinstein, CEO and founder of Godot and host of What Are You Waiting For? Today we have a special guest, Tammy Wang from Simsola, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. Tammy, you want to give us a quick intro and tell us a little bit about Simsola?
Sounds good. Thank you, Andy. Nice to meet you all there. And I'm Tammy. I live in Seattle, and my I came from a technology background. I really love science and technology, and that led me to an early career in high tech. I worked at Microsoft and Zillow before, but then I decided to work on applications that are more related to people. I found that direction more interesting and more tangible results. And that led me to switch the career path from the infrastructure layer, algorithm, middle layer to application layer to build technology platforms to support people development since 10 years ago. So that led me to build Simsola AI. Simsola is a platform using AI technology to help people explore how they can improve their skills, specifically to like conversation skills we use every day at work, at home. It is a tricky but interesting skill to dive into that really can improve the quality, of everyday work or life.
I can vouch for the effectiveness of Simsola because at Weinstein Beverage, we're using it now, and it's been one of the easiest kind of return on investments from an AI project that I've seen so far because human interaction is important. But what really kind of got you into this? Like, take me back to young Tammy.
Mhm.
What motivated you to really get onto this path?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think earlier days, I thought the smart solutions, they were about algorithms, they were about math, and I enjoy doing those. So, building a complex application with algorithms that can accurately predict market trend, a pricing surge. Those things were fascinating to me. But if you work long enough, you realize those are the means to an end, but often the problems are not about how smart the algorithm is about how the organization is structured to solve that problem. Most real world problems are so complex that one person cannot finish the entire thing. It takes many smart people to work together to do that. In that process, lots of efforts, lots of talent got lost. And I've been through those projects that, you know, so many smart people worked so hard, yet it seems like we were not clear about what we were trying to solve. And we just, tried so many things and didn't know where we were going. So I think the core of the problem many times for a great result is to get people the ability to share and to collaborate and to inspire each other. So that got me to build a different application, but to solve the same problem.
So, can you give me like example of like an aha moment that made you kind of see this? Because I know having worked in many companies and on multiple projects, one of the things you realize is the problem is never the technology. It's usually the management, right? It's usually the communication. And people don't leave companies because of the company, they leave because of their managers. So, like, what was your aha moment? And you don't need to throw a manager under the bus in particular, but, like, was there a moment where you started to real that kind of really opened your eyes to this, it's people, it's people, stupid, it's people.
Well, I think that can be any project you work on with the people. I worked on projects that seemed all stars aligned with the right investment, with large teams, with the right market and the right data, everything aligned. Yet it did not produce the right result. It was very frustrating and exhausting because so much energy was wasted just to figure out, you know, such and such doesn't like such and such. And that kind of a miscommunication and conflicts clearly, had increased the cost and misdirected the projects and so many talents, their time and effort got wasted. And other, I worked on an amazing project a few years ago. You know, surprisingly, not surprisingly, is how to measure talent and leadership strength, and that was a tough project. Not big team, but the leaders in that firm, they're very inspiring people. They have the domain knowledge, and they work really closely with the data science team and give them the insights, encourage people, to get on the right path and get back to the right track when we didn't have the right results at the beginning. It's an exploration, you know, tough projects, but we got amazing results because of the culture and the knowledge and the wisdom and the inspiration leaders brought to a small team, but tackled a big project. So that was the aha moment that got me to think, you know, take a step back from math and science, what we're trying to solve. If we want to solve the problem, we can really remove all the bottlenecks, right? And that got me to this current Simsola platform as a solution to help people, to help organizations.
Yeah. And so before Simsola, what were you doing?
I was doing data science, primarily focusing on data science projects.
Give me the exact title of your job so that and who you worked for so that people can wrap their head around why you have experience in navigating the space.
Oh yeah, I was the SVP of data science at Korn Ferry, and Korn Ferry is one of the largest HR consulting companies in this actually globally one of the largest. So, my responsibilities were a lot about how to build data science and machine learning to really empower the solutions for talent management and acquisition.
Yeah. My experience with Corn Ferry was as an intern at PepsiCo. Our HR manual was done by Corn Ferry. And the only reason why I know that was it was on the cover. And I don't know if I opened that once. I think one of the problems that you see with a lot of HR solutions is there is so much push of liability onto somebody else to read something that's big and boring, like a HR manual. So, what made you go from that model of creating books and physical things to AI agents that can interact directly with employees, like what Simsola does?
Yeah, I think that came from my own experience and feedback from a lot of people we work with, at Simsola or in my entire career. My own experience, I went through a lot of great facilitated sessions. Like probably Andy, you've been to a lot of them, like how to communicate better, how to become a better manager. And they give you a book at the end. I read a lot of those books. The problem is that when you go back to your real meetings and your conflicts, you try to resolve with people you work with, those great advice, you read from the book or you learned from the workshop, they don't apply right away. You don't know how to change your behavior, your normal patterns to react to certain things, especially under pressure. to do things differently, in front of a live audience or your boss or your colleague. It's very hard to change. So I always hoped there could be a nice, safe environment and a curriculum or like a methodology I can follow, that I can learn these things step by step in an easier way. Like we all learn music, right? We don't play Beethoven, at age 5. We do this Suzuki method. You do a few interesting repetitions of some, that you can follow step by step. And those kind of methods, especially when they built in a very intuitive way, they can make the learning process very enjoyable, and you can tackle those Beethoven, Mozart pieces at the end. It takes years to get better. I think communication skills and, or more important part of this skill is, how do you resolve this social dynamics under pressure? That will take years and a systematic method to really master. I wanted to create that for everybody.
One of the things that I like so much about using Simsola is that safe environment for employees to essentially train real world scenarios that we are able to design on the front end so that it makes sense to them, so that the essentially reenactment of that scenario is actually the training wheels that we need to have done, or training wheels or dance steps, right?
Yes,
I know you have a slight passion for dance.
yes, I do.
You want to tell me us a little bit about your passion for dance and essentially the role of dance has been for you over the years as you've essentially danced from one big company, whether it's Microsoft, to another like Corn Ferry, and now taking the next leap of being an entrepreneur. How has dance kind of set you up for that?
I think dance gives me the space to think and to relate with a lot of things and to think about how to put things together nicely. Dance is hard. Of all the professions, I think professional dancing is the most, how to say, cruel, to people, because it's just such a high level of requirement of flawless execution, of speed, of the, you know, music sense, musicality, your movement, the shape of every single muscle and a neuron, and all those things have to work so perfect together to really do it well. The hard part of, or what's helpful for dance is that you do it well or not, it's so visible. There is a move, let's say you do a double pirouette. You do it wrong, everybody can see, and you know that. And there are ways to practice, and you can practice in front of a mirror. You can practice, recording yourself. You can find where the problem is. Is that you get to your toes not fast enough? Your head is not in the right position, so you're not aligned. You fall off halfway through. Those visibility made dance moves, perfect. And sometimes I use that same line of logic to think about communication skills. What is so hard to improve communication skills is that you actually don't know. When you're in a conversation, how you performed, how well your messages landed, you don't know. You don't have that mirror, you don't have that, recorded, music, the dance pieces to tell you which moment that was wrong, because it takes, it takes a higher level of analytic skills to parse that piece by piece to really figure out the steps that went wrong. And most of the time we don't know. We just have that impression. We left the meeting with an impression that woo, that was a bad meeting. I wish I could do it better, but I don't know where it went wrong and how I could go back and fix it. So that how we can make this process repeatable and visible, that was a big part of the principle of design of Simsola. So that's why we borrowed many frameworks and methodologies from developmental psychology, which it's a framework that you can decompose the skills into smaller measurable moments, measurable components, assign scores, so that you can go back and see the steps that went wrong and go to that consistent environmental practice again. It's just like a dance. Do that double pirouette in front of the same mirror 10,000 times, you get there. I think we should do that same thing for other skills that are not so visible.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think helps shape how we communicate is how information is received when we're growing up and the environments in which we grow up. And we see this some of this data is so clearly seen between genders,
Mhm.
and when somebody can say the exact same information, have the same tone of voice, but because of their perspective or because of their orientation or whatever, it doesn't hit as the same way. Where did you grow up, and then how did your communication kind of come from that type of environment that you grew up in?
Yeah, I think I grew up. I came from another country, another culture. I was born raised in China, and I came from an environment that both of my parents they were professors in universities, and I grew up in that environment. You know, in a way. How to say, they value knowledge, they value dedication, of effort, and that was a deep down value. But I think a real communication breakthrough came from when I actually moved to the US to start my grad school study. Changing from a very traditional Chinese culture and environment, you know, coming from there to a very different, you know, using a different language, learning in the social interactions in an American society. It was frustrating. It was very challenging at the beginning because I just didn't know like all those words I learned from books and all the ways how Chinese people communicate certain, you know, social interactions. How do you build relationship? How do you build connections? How do you build trust with the people? Very different method and very different words, very different sentence structures. How do you like really build those connections in a new environment where the construct of that connections can be entirely different? That was the process that really opened my mind in a way. I chose to try it. I could just hide in the libraries to study more and interact with people very similar to me. But I thought, I wouldn't want to waste the time. And since I came to this environment, I might just as well learn more about it. So I decided just to try to talk to people, learn about how you say this, why you say this, and what's the difference of using these words versus that words. Eventually, you realize human connections are so similar. Using a different language, using a different, sentence structure versus, doing it directly or indirectly. But at the end of the day, the actual ways we connected to each other, we build trust with each other, are so similar. That was the moment I just felt like, wow, we're all connected, knowing it or not. If you figure out, like, if you have the deep trust of human connection and find, connect with people in the right way, eventually you'll find that path. That really opened, the doors for great friendship, great job connections, very good work environment, and lots of friends. Just like, you, Andy, we met in a random event. We walked around the Green Lake. I mean, one lap while everybody else was running. We built deep connections about technology, about AI, leadership, company cultures. I mean, that was just beautiful. I think the more we try to break the barriers, the happier we will be. That's just basically how I felt from a different background, or
Yeah.
different, like gender, or a different, I don't know, any difference that on the surface we experienced. If
Yeah.
you have the faith and be more optimistic and find the good people to connect with, and things will be different at the end, and the good results will happen.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is very clear where you start to realize we're all human
Hmm.
is we all wanna belong to a big group, and we also all wanna stand out.
Yeah.
And the range of fitting in and standing out depends on essentially the subgroups that are connected.
Hmm.
And you and I, we met at that, the
Kirby's
Kirby's
pitch
pitch and
and
walk,
run, pitch and run.
pitch
Yeah.
and run.
Yes.
Yeah. We pitch and waddled, but it's okay. And it was great because as you said, we really started to connect. We were there, we were with Hans of Momenta Ventures, and we were able to get pretty deep on a bunch of topics, and we're like, "How do you know this?" Right?
Mhm.
"You know this too? I
Yeah.
know this," right? And it was really a incredible moment because what we started to do was essentially pick out our commonalities,
Hmm.
adhere to those, and then learn from each other what our differences were, and then ask questions regarding that. And it's like this, it's almost like a gear fitting in. Like the things that fit in are the commonalities, and the things that are sticking out are the differences. And if it works, if we have that perfect mix, we just work well together.
Yeah, yeah. I think in totally agree. I think like focus on the common part, the common interest, the common goals and objectives, and learn from each other. I also think it's important to be curious. I mean, that's the fun part, right? Things in your world, clean energy, you know, how to optimize the resources, the distribution, and do great things and have big dreams, how to really promote energy efficient solutions. I think be curious, like what would that look like? And learn from that. I think that's where, great connections can be built. Just be excited about other people's work as well.
Yeah. Where did you go? Where did you go for grad school that brought you to the United States?
I went to Tulane University in New Orleans, yes, in Louisiana.
Okay. And so you come from China, and where in China were you?
I was in Beijing,
Okay, so you're basically from the
northern China to southern US. Quite a journey. I had no clue why I got there and how I got there, but it was a pretty random. Back then, information wasn't as, you know, easily accessible as we have today. It's basically shoot the dart of a random list of schools and applied.
It's so funny. So we just had he Zhang of SK on the
Mhm.
podcast, and he was talking about how he chose Indiana University
Oh.
because it had the name India in it, and he was living in he had gone to school and boarding school in India.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
so that's how he chose Indiana, which I
Wow.
thought is a hilarious thing. And you're essentially having the same issue where you chose a school in the United States just relatively randomly
Yeah,
because of the fact that it
it's
was
just
it the subject of your studies, or like how did the dart land there?
well, there are two reasons, which completely not related to academic world, of the reasons. The one reason is jazz music. Yeah, I sort of liked that time of my life. I liked jazz piano, and I thought, oh, that's a good place for a lot of good concerts. Second reason is Tennessee Williams, the writer I really liked at that time. So, and they both pointed to Louisiana, New Orleans, and somehow there was a school there. It looked perfect to me, and yeah, that was a big random reason to choose a school. That I don't recommend people do that. Yeah, think about rational reasons. Long term goals. But when you're young, you have all kinds of weird reasons to do certain things. I think that's a fun part of life.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, yeah, very long ago. So that would that would lead to, well, the reveal the age. Yeah.
Okay. It it was about 30 years ago.
Yeah. 30
A
years
little less than 30 or 30 less
It's
than
about
30 years.
30 years ago. Yeah. The exact 30 years ago, actually. Yeah.
And so you go from Tulane, you get your PhD there.
hmm
And where is the first destination afterwards?
I joined a company referred by my friend, my best friend actually, to like a Seattle. At that time, it was a Paul Allen startup. It's called Star Wave. I think it got acquired by another company by the time I joined. And eventually that company got acquired again by Disney. So it became Disney's digital interactive group. And I was, hired as a data scientist to do, algorithm side of advertising, segmentation, targeting, pricing, allocation, all of that. But back then, data science wasn't, a thing. We were all under software engineers at that time.
That and so if you go from Disney to Microsoft, so
Yeah,
big names.
big names. Yeah, Disney to Microsoft, for sure.
And then when did you feel comfortable taking the leap to a small name?
I think it was the problem domain. I was just, I wanted to do something that can be more tangible, that I can see the impact. Advertising is great. Advertising can link, consumers to products, can get people to bring, what the offerings in front of audience to get them to understand and use it. So, but if you do a lot of advertising in your job, you sort of only see the numbers. You see revenue, you see how to really reach to a market that it can grow and how to accurately or more accurately segment the audiences so you can find the right fit for the right match. It's a matching problem. Overall, like there are many mechanisms to do matching. Overall, it's a numbers game. It's a math problem. I wanted to do something that is more of a people problem I can see and feel. So that problem domain led me to, my job as head of data science for a recruiting company to match people to jobs. You can clearly see the results. You can clearly see the impact. That's, to me, more satisfying at that time. I wanted to see a result, and I can understand. Not X amount of revenue growth in the X amount of time.
Okay. And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about
Mhm.
that people matching piece
Yes.
because right now AI is both generating and applying to more jobs than ever.
Mm-hmm.
More filters are being done by AI,
Mm-hmm.
creating essentially a sea of garbage.
Yes.
And I've had multiple discussions just over the past few weeks with different companies that are actually talking about not doing online kind of recruitment,
Mhm.
but going back to old school booth on the street and say who wants a job,
Yeah.
because they don't know, if they don't see them, they don't know if they're real.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
How do you think that that's gonna that essentially overload of AI junk
Mhm.
is going to affect management in the going forward?
Well, I think that goes back to accuracy problem. That goes back to the technology limitation problem. If AI is good at what it's doing, let's see recruiting, let's see finding the right candidate for the right jobs. If the AI is very good at that, it will be less likely to be tricked by AI junks. It can see through the junks and find the right talent. And I think going back to the booth on the street, is that a better solution? I doubt it. How who you're gonna put in the booth to do the selection, and how many people can walk by to your booth and to be the candidates. It's not a scalable solution, and it's not an accurate solution either. So I'm not gonna rule out AI as almost like an inhuman methodology. It needs to be better. And I think it can be a great efficiency gain if it's good. The problem is that there are many bad ones. They look at keywords. If you look at that, then when you fake the resume with the right keywords, you'll be selected even though you're not qualified. But AI can do a lot better than that. A lot better. So where do you get the signal, and how do you process the signal, and how do you find the right candidate? It can be done in a very, very smart and efficient way. In the perfect world, the candidate doesn't have to do anything. They'll be selected for the right jobs if they are qualified and if they're the right fit. You don't have to, polish your resume. You don't have to, put so much effort to really fake a persona, that you're not really that person. So don't need to fake a skill set that's irrelevant. You get the job if you're good. So I think it just depends on how you think about it, depends on how you execute.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am looking at the hiring perspective as
Hmm.
values first, similar to how like Sam Altman looks at it as values first, skills and knowledge base can be added later.
Hmm.
And so if you're looking at employees based off of what is either publicly or near publicly available information, and I
Hmm.
say near publicly because everybody has these private databases that they think is giving them more insight, but sometimes it's giving them more noise.
Hmm.
You have these people who might be identified by having the right skill sets and knowledge sets, but don't have the right value alignment. And I think Simsola is actually really good at extracting that value alignment.
Yeah.
How have you thought about expanding from essentially management training to a next step with that understanding of saying, hey, I actually have something that's unique for the job hiring market. I
Hmm.
can I can extract the values as well as the skill sets and knowledge sets that you and I have talked about using natural language processing.
Hmm.
How do I put that package together to go from Simsola, this management training tool, to the next level, and what does that next level look like?
Well, I think that's a long way to go because we barely touch the surface of the management skills training or the conversational skills training side. I think doing the matching problem, it could be a long reach, but I switched from the matching problem, the talent acquisition problem, to talent development problem. The reason is that talent acquisition problem essentially is an optimization. It's a lift in efficiency problem. So when you find the right match for the right between jobs and candidates, you lift the market efficiency. But building talent pipelines, building talent pool quality, it's a value increase problem. So the industry overall, any industry overall needs better talent. And essentially matching efficiency can get there, but I don't think we have enough solutions to build a bigger pie. We're good at we have many thousands of solutions to match, to slice the pies. It doesn't really solve the real problem. We don't have good solutions to really get talent quality up to a better standard, to maximize every talent's potential and increase talent's competencies. We don't have enough solutions to solve this problem. This is a problem that is a value-added problem. Matching is an efficiency problem. It's a
Yeah,
secondary problem.
yeah, and I think to kind of parlay that into my next question is the matching piece is something that you guys are working on with the management training tools.
Mhm.
And I think when we use management training, it seems like we're focusing only on a small cohort. But with Weinstein Beverage and the quickness of essentially taking blue collars and elevating them, we have seen that this is not something that is blue collar versus white collar as a tool.
I think the value added, in terms of training, especially management training, it helps organizations, in a way that we've observed with the data, and from Weinstein Beverage and other clients. If you have two cohorts, in sequence, you have cohort one. You in the first 6 months, cohort two in the second 6 months. When you measure the of cohort one, the starting point and the end point, of course, there's a huge lift. Everybody improved to be a better communicator, to really understand different perspectives, to be a better manager, to communicate issues, problems, and resolve conflicts in a better way. But what's amazing is that the second cohort's starting point is actually a lot higher than the first cohort starting point. It's a midpoint between the starting and the end point of cohort one. In social sciences, this is called network diffusion, is that when you have, because organizations actually are a connected network of people, and the communication pattern, the way we behave, our behavior, the way we talk, the way we treat other people, they diffuse. They transfer from one person to another through especially high frequency interactions at workplace. So you can see the lift of the first cohort automatically got to the second cohort before they even started. And the second cohort started from a much better place, and it got improved, even higher competencies level in these skills. And as you can imagine, these two cohorts together will change the culture of an organization because they bring this behavior into their day-to-day interactions, and they will transfer the way they resolve conflicts in a rational and empathetic and healthier and inspiring way in the organization. And that would change the overall culture. We found a lot of good things, how all these type of solutions can really bring the talent pools to the next level.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about how I look at companies as essentially an algorithm of human capital to generate
Exactly.
revenue,
Yes.
right? And when we think about creating these ecosystems of culture, if you have a lot of good players, you essentially want them to spread their good culture to as many people as possible,
Yep.
right? And so if we create interoperability within an organization, all of a sudden that culture can just spread like wildfire
Mhm,
versus what we see in a lot of stagnant organizations
mhm.
where, again, you don't quit a company because of the company, you quit a company because of your manager.
Yeah.
And we see that managers tend to be this big block. And so using Simsola to help managers become better should help create a system effect. But I also think there's a system effect in the design of the organization.
Yeah.
How have you thought about building your own organization with this concept of saying, hey, before I had no control. Now I'm in the leadership role and I
Mhm,
can literally dictate how we're organized and how we are connected to everybody.
mhm.
How have you changed your perspective now that you're in that seat versus coming from your previous role at Corn Ferry, where you got to essentially see everybody else's organizations?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a great question, and as we are entering this AI era, that answer actually can change a lot too, right? Because when you think about scaling a solution, a lot of times it's about how to scale with more people to really achieve higher productivity. When you think about when old days Microsoft has thousands of engineers to build, like say, Windows. You need that many people because it takes a lot of work. And how you organize that many people into units and coordinate and to achieve a common goal. There are many theories around that. My theory is that more people, the productivity gain, there is a point of diminishing return. More people, you can see more productivity. And at a certain point, there are more problems to slow down the productivities. At a certain cross point, there's an equilibrium that you add more people, you might reduce productivity. And many big companies experience that at a certain point, right? So I think my philosophy is that, you know, minimum viable, minimum viable teams understand the problems and get it to work. And until you absolutely have a good point to add more people, do not expand organizations and put people randomly together to really think that would solve the problem. Often the problem cannot be solved by adding more people. In a traditional way, that's, if we down like more human capital can solve bigger problems, the past, that's what I would take. But now we add a spin, we add a new flavor to that solution. So now the problem is which part of these problem can be done by AI and which part of the problem can be done by human. And how do you divide that and how do you orchestrate the combination? That is a new problem. I don't think we have a theory or we have a playbook or we have a template to solve that yet. But that's the interesting part of the workplace 2025.
Yeah, the question is, do we hire a body or do we bring in 12 agents? And if we have 12 agents, who dictates their direction and what they do and who validates what they're doing is correct?
Yeah.
Because quality control is another big problem with AI.
Exactly. And if that's the premise you're thinking about hiring people, and who do you hire? Is that the same talent? Is that the same IQ, EQ level, or it's a different talent, a different domain of expertise?
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties that we experience today is that we're trying to fit people into job descriptions, versus take what is uniquely powerful about each individual
Mhm.
and put them in the best positions to succeed. And when we're building a company, it's almost you find yourself saying, okay, I need to have somebody to do finance. I need to have somebody who can help me with legal. I need to have somebody who does marketing. And you end up in a weird way looking for people to fill roles of what you think those roles require versus what those roles really do require on a day-to-day basis. And it then brings you to the next piece of what is something that I can do outsource or what should I do in-house? Have you thought about creating some type of way to identify this is something that merits in-house work or this is something that can be an outside party that we do fractionally?
Yeah. I think yeah, that's another, and another interesting trend is that, outsource versus in-house, a right balance can really add efficiency and bring the cost and the flexibility to the organization. I think it's a skill set of a company and an organization today, especially in the early stage, startup range, or big companies. Any big companies always have this balance of outsource versus in-house type of a development, team structure. I think it is a very good structure to consider all the time. But depending on the projects, depending on the situation and the context, it needs to be carefully designed and carefully managed. Is that I don't think there's a good ready to use the templates, but my thought was always like when you manage cloud resource, elastic resources are always the most efficient, but there is always a cost of, you know, recurring usage patterns that you can optimize on for stable resource allocations as well. So it's always a trade-off.
Yeah. And well, we're getting towards the end, and I have a very big, important question.
All right.
What are you, Tammy, waiting for?
I'm waiting for the moment or the great lift, the great efficiency gain, the great applications that can empower people. I think we touched briefly on, you know, if the recruiting AI is perfect, then we don't need to polish resumes. We don't need to interview with the, rounds and rounds of companies that are the wrong fit. If we have the right, you have a good tool for us to really improve our communication skills and conversational skills, we understand ourselves better. We build deeper connections with other people at work, at home, outside, and in other social events. We meet good friends, just like you, Candy, Andy, and we enjoy better life maybe with all these tools available to us.
So you're waiting for the tools to fulfill the promise that they state rather than the realities?
No, I think we are entering a an age that the limit of our barrier as a human can be removed, from where we are today to where we want to be. And the barrier can be removed by wonderful solutions. And I think as a person, we can, we can do what we enjoy the most, and we can build deeper connections, and we can essentially have, a much better quality of life.
Yeah. And I agree. I think we are really at an inflection point in human history and it's so technology driven. It feels like we're at like the second steam engine, and people are still trying to apply the steam engine to a horse cart. Um, and I think this is where we apply the steam engine to our back and we fly.
I hope so. I think it's in a way, steam engines don't understand you as a person, don't understand you emotionally. This is a new era that can do a lot more than, you know, than bringing you from place A to place B. It can do a lot more than that. Yeah, I'm very hopeful that our life will get better. The
I,
quality will be better.
yeah, I think that we are in the churn moment, and there are a lot of really promising things with AI. And one of the things that helped me get over, let's say, some of the AI fears was just seeing how quickly we realized results with Simsola at Weinstein Beverage, because it was not the efficiency that people typically talk about, but it's the human interaction that is really something that happens every day, all the time, that really improved dramatically. And I just want to thank you for, first becoming a friend, and secondly, delivering such a good product. And thirdly, coming on the podcast. I really appreciate this. This has been another episode of What Are You Waiting For? A podcast by Godot, Tammy Wang of Simsola. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So much fun to really talk about these subjects, and I'm hopeful because young generation leaders like you push the limits of technology and to do good things, to save the environment, to really do the right things for the society. I appreciate your effort.
Thank you. I like that. I'm not sure I consider myself young, especially since it's kind of highlighted by the bald spot. But maybe I'll fill that in Elon style, and
All right.
get a little younger in the future.
Yeah. Well, I'll see you at a picture run this year. We'll walk again.
Sounds good. Thank you. This has been another episode of What Are You Waiting For? A podcast by Godot.
Thank you, Andy.